And speaking of that, let's go to 32nd board, JT. We have to reflect on this RedBud podium. They played a soundbite of mine at the beginning of every show, a scene that can rival anything in motorsports. I believe it. There might not be the same number of fans that you'd have at the Indy 500 or an F1 race, but I don't know if they can match that.
I don't know how you could match this ever. The chaos and the pandemonium that podium scene is, I've never seen anything like it. I've certainly never been a part of anything like it. These people are rabid down there in all the best ways, and they are so enthusiastic about being there and cheering for these riders. And imagine you're one of these riders that gets to go up there and they're all chanting your name. You get the USA chants for the 4th of July celebration. They're chanting for AP. It is just a scene to behold. And as good of a job as our team and production team does bringing this into your living room, I don't think you really can. It is just something that is, it's a once-in-a-year opportunity. It really is.
Yeah, the other forms of racing just don't let the fans get that close, and that's why motocross is so cool, and we get some of those elements at the SMX races also. And RedBud becomes the coronation for Chance Hymas. You told this story on the podium 2 years ago, the Scouting Moto Combine, one of his worst races ever. I think he finished 11-4. Haiden Deegan dominated. He wasn't even close. And 2 years later, here he is getting his first national win.
Yeah, this has really kind of come out of nowhere. You see Jet Lawrence working in the background there like a watching mother just kind of protecting her hen. But this kid, he's found it. Whatever it was missing, he has found it. And they talked about changing the diet. They talked about working on his technique. I know Michael Byrne has been instrumental behind the scenes in getting this program going. But being completely honest, a few months ago, there were questions about where this program was going to go. Honda HRC had to make a decision with Chance Hymas. We're going to keep him. Was the investment that they had made in him, was it working? Was there a future for this program? Well, thankfully for everybody involved on that side, that's a resounding yes at this point. He's second place in championship points. He gets his first overall win at RedBud, just like Haiden Deegan maybe did a year ago. It's a fantastic success story, and I think everybody there is breathing a big sigh of relief that the train is on the tracks here.
So Hymas becomes the second non-Haiden Deegan winner of a 250 overall this year. The other one, Ty Masterpool, just a classic battle right to the wire with Deegan in the first moto. Those fans on the fence line, those sand rollers, unreal. I mean, the RedBud crowd is always awesome, as we mentioned, but to see a side-by-side battle with one of the biggest stars in the sport and one of the great stories of the sport, Masterpool versus Deegan, that was so cool. But as for Deegan, okay, he doesn't get the first moto win by 0.3 of a second. That's not a disaster. Second moto, not as good. Turns out he crashed into that bike that we saw crash right before Vial and Masterpool came through. So you could write off the second moto result with that. But JT, you think just watching Deegan that also it wasn't quite as good as the previous rounds?
Yeah, he just looked a little off to me. Just noticed a few things in corners, and that could be bike setup, that could be just him having an off day, but he didn't look, especially in that second moto, just didn't have the pace that he normally has. He wasn't able to just blitz by riders the way he normally does. And that's okay, because to me, the most important aspect of that is throughout this season, regardless of what adversity has been thrown at him, bad starts, big crashes like Hangtown, and again here at RedBud, you know what he's doing? He's maintaining and only increasing his points lead throughout that process. So if you can do that, if you can have your bad days turn into an even Steven type point situation, you put so much pressure on everybody else, and eventually you start pulling away in the championship exactly the way he has.
What's pretty cool is we keep referencing that Scouting Moto Combine for both Deegan and Hymas and how important that has become now to their development. And then we get to see it again at RedBud. Now, the headliner is Drew Adams, who was also very fast and won a lot of SX Futures races, won it. But that's only if you look at the results. Shout out to Landon Gordon, who's earlier in his development, only on a 250F for the first time this year. He led the entire thing, like down to the last turn before he tipped over. And then I talked to Ryan Holiday, who manages Kawasaki Team Green. He said, yeah, he was tired. These are long motos. That's the point of this whole thing, to expose them to that.
Yeah, this is such a cool development. We've watched this program grow. And if you were wondering, hey, is this working? Are we seeing development come out of this? Well, I would tell you this. In 2022, Chance Hymas graduated from this program, and you could say with mixed results. It didn't always go very well, especially in the motocross portion. Supercross went a little bit better. Last year, Haiden Deegan graduates from this program. Well, guess who was first and second place in championship points in the Pro Motocross Championship? So I think that's proof enough that these guys are figuring things out. And when they take that step, they are much more prepared than they ever would have been in the past.
Just a matter of time here for Drew Adams. He's going to be a player. He's checking all the boxes. Now even racing in Canada to gain more experience with some pros up there. It's great, as we mentioned, in Supercross. Okay, let's switch to the 450 division now. Yeah, so Jet Lawrence, he's out as far as racing is concerned, but he still came to RedBud, and this is not normal. Most riders of his stature, we haven't seen Eli Tomac and Cooper Webb at races signing autographs. This is cool that he did this.
Yeah, and I think it's multi-layered here. For one, I think he just wants to come and enjoy the weekend and have a good time because he doesn't really get to do that. There's so much pressure on Jet Lawrence all the time to win races and win championships. And also, don't forget, his older brothers fighting for the 450 Pro Motocross Championship, and one of his best friends, Chance Hymas, is second place in points in the 250 Pro Motocross Championship. And also their training partner, Drew Adams, is racing on Friday that we just talked about. So there are so many reasons for him to be there. So it makes sense on paper, but I think he enjoyed this weekend at RedBud. And even with a cast on his hand, fresh out of surgery, I think he truly enjoyed the RedBud experience more than most weekends he will ever get a chance to, just because of that huge burden taken off his back of having to perform. He could just be there, be a fan, and watch the races like everybody else.
Yeah, my co-host in the booth, Ricky Carmichael, even theorizing maybe this helps Jet long-term. It's going to be bad to be out 6 to 8 weeks. He will be back for SMX playoffs, but just finally getting a little pressure relief because it has been a whirlwind over the last 14 months. Maybe that helps him down the road. Now, yes, it didn't work out the way Jet would have liked it for Hunter Lawrence, who ends up going 2-4 in the motos. So as we said at the top of the show, you leave RedBud saying, this is Chase Sexton's. He dominated. He went 1-1. But there is a world where Hunter Lawrence wins Moto 1 and everything looks different.
Yeah, I think Hunter was on his way. I do believe he was going to win that first moto until that gigantic crash. Now, nothing was guaranteed. You could see Sexton right in the background there. He's maybe a second behind, maybe less than that. But Hunter I think he had done the hard work. He had proven that he could, when Chase was bringing his best laps with 10 minutes to go, Hunter actually picked his pace back up and was able to match that. So I think it was a big step. Now, he's got to finish the process, and he's also got to bring that same level in Moto 2, which he was not able to do this weekend. But I was very impressed. I really thought that Chase would kind of have his way in the second half of that moto, and Hunter pushed back pretty hard on that until he didn't.
For now, we're sitting on an historic win, really, for Chase Sexton. This is the closest track that he'll race on all year to where he's from in Illinois, not too far across the state line. Heck, even the water truck driver at RedBud is actually from his home track and Sunset Ridge, and they sprayed him as he came across the line. They had prearranged, if you go 1-1, I'll spray you with water. And those vibes, man, he's got a lot of momentum coming in now to Minnesota.
Yeah, he was locked in this weekend. I even asked him, hey, you want to do an interview before this second moto? And he was very polite and very professional, but you could just tell he did not want to do that. He was in full race mode. He knew what was on the line here, not only for the championship and the momentum, but also, like you said, home race. He had never won an overall here before. It was very apparent to me what this moment meant leading into that second moto. And he got the job done. You know, it reminded me a lot of the performance he put in here in the 2022 Motocross of Nations, getting the job done, and the joy on his face after that was apparent for everybody to see. Now we're going to also see what that does leading into Spring Creek, because I believe that was a huge confidence booster for him. And I think he is finding himself again, right? We always ask that question, what's eating Chase Sexton over the past year or so? I think he's kind of come out of a shell, and I think we're going to see the Chase Sexton that we thought we would see over the past year.
Well, the other question we've been asking with Sexton over the past year is, will he return to Team USA for Motocross of Nations? Because he not racing it last year because he was switching to KTM and the sponsorships and all these things that had to work their way through. I think that prevented other riders from racing on the team as well. They all want Sexton on the team if you're one of the American racers. So he and Plessinger were actually asked about this in the press conference at RedBud. They said they have not been approached by anyone yet, but Chase made it pretty clear, and Aaron, that they would love to race for the team. I think the reason it's been delayed, Mike Pelletier of the AMA was actually at the MXGP race in Indonesia. So he wasn't at RedBud. So I think this will unfold in the next couple of weeks. The main thing people want to know is Haiden Deegan going to race for the team. I think Mike is indicating that Yamaha's interested, so that's good. But what we do know for now is we have an auction going. Our friend Paul Parabinos from Renthal put together Raise It for USA. Go to that website. And then Mike Bonacci of Club MX spent the whole weekend collecting all this red, white, and blue RedBud stuff. You can bid on it, and all the money goes to the Team USA effort.
Yeah, this is really cool. And I've been going to this race all over the world for a very long time. And to your point about those riders choosing to go, I truly hope we can put our best foot forward. It's been a hit and miss proposition over the last few years about who's going to go. Well, if they're not going, I'm not going, right? Hopefully we can get our best team out there. And it's hard for me to believe that with Roger DeCoster playing such a big role that he wouldn't be absolutely supporting Chase Sexton. And if AP gets picked, to bring those guys. And that's the question to me. I think Sexton is a shoo-in. I think, does Haiden Deegan go? That is the second question. If he says yes, he's in. The other big question is, who is that third rider? Do they go back to Justin Cooper, who was the hero of 2022? Do they take AP, who said yes last year when not many people did? That's a really interesting proposition for the second 450 rider.
But if you want to watch the racing this weekend from Minnesota, Race Day Live will kick it off, brought to you by motorsport.com at 10:30 Eastern Time. The schedule is a little different this weekend. Normally we're at 10. It'll be 10:30, and the first moto will take place at 1:30, not the normal 1 o'clock time. And that is all to fit into a live NBC window. The first moto of the day will be 450 Moto 1. That's at 1:30. That's on NBC. Of course, you can watch everything 450s and 250s on SMX Video Pass outside the United States or on Peacock. Pivotal race coming up in Minnesota.
Hi folks, Lee Diffie from NBC Sports here. If you truly enjoyed what you just watched, you can get more news, interviews, and highlights by subscribing to the Motorsports on NBC YouTube page. You can get it all, so go for it.